Hey, this is the first episode of the Scale Intelligence podcast. I'm here with Terry.
Hello.
And I'm Roman. I think we just really wanted to come down to one core sort of idea is how do we look at the frontier AI research and methods and see what is actually being applied to growing businesses?
Yep. I think so many people are burning tokens right now with all these AI tools, and there's so much pressure to always be up to date on AI. But the question that we want to explore is this actually making people money?
Yeah, 100%. So I think I'm going to give a little bit of background just so you can understand where I'm coming from. I did a lot of various different marketing roles. Like I started as like a 12-year-old doing meme pages. And then from there, I just did various different businesses. I did an events company where I was involved in a lot of marketing. We did a lot of different like sold out shows, etc., etc. Then from there, I moved more into sort of like AI and sort of like growth engineering as like a service, a few different startups, like AI startups. Then I moved to Camel AI, where I actually met Terry. They were very much involved in the agent research space. They were the first like a LLM-based multi-agent system. And then from there, I'm currently a co-founder at Core Protocol, where we're very much looking into like agent orchestration research. But my sort of day-to-day and my interest at the moment is very much GTM engineering. How do you actually apply this?
My name's Terry Damiba. I'm a senior developer experience engineer at Quadrant, working in vector search. Before that, I used to be a data scientist at the Department of Homeland Security. So I have a background in not only search, but also taking information and turning it into actionable either results or recommendations. And super interested in GTM, obviously, as developer relations is moving more and more into not only AI, but social media.
Nice. And I think just one thing I kind of want to get out of the way before we jump into the first episode is who this is going to be for. I see a lot of beginner content for like, okay, like how do I get Claude Code set up? How like what's a skill? Stuff like that. Like we will cover those kind of topics, but this to me is going to be a little bit more technical. It's going to be more like what is at the frontier, like actually how does it work? Going in a little bit in depth. Like we are going to simplify things. But some of the frontier methods just aren't simplified yet. So it's going to be finding the frontier at any complexity that is required for that. But we will try make it simple as well.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of resources out there that are covering it on that other level. We're interested in getting a little more deeper. If you don't know what pip install is, then you're probably not going to have a great time. Yeah. And if you know what the difference is between UV and rough, then this is the podcast for you.
We're going to work on like a theme basis. So each week's going to be a different theme. It might be like email. It might be like content engineering. It might be like landscaping, ad tech, etc. But we thought a really good jumping off point would just be what is GTM engineering? So I'm going to start with what is GTM engineering? I think it's the hottest role, which a lot of companies are talking about right now. But where did it actually come from?
Not sure. I feel like it's something that just has always existed inside of one person on the team's brain. There was always that one person who you knew all the APIs, how to get the data from here, how to get the email to Slack, but they didn't have a role that was defined as GTM. They were just kind of that person, an ops or an admin who just knew how to do it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of what it was is when I was doing growth hacking at Text Cortex, it's not as engineering focused, but it's the same kind of thing. It's just like you're running different experiments. Sometimes it's to do with code, but like it's just running all these various experiments and kind of in between that and kind of marketing ops where you're kind of doing it more like a systematic level. But I think Play, the company, actually kind of laid claim to the actual term itself. So I'm just going to sort of go through about their sort of origin story around it on this blog.
Nice.
They said, we built the first GTM engineering team and we believe it's the future of sales. As you can see from this screenshot here, I like the name GTM engineer. We'll go with that title for the team. Their point they're basically making is a decade ago, The way teams grew revenue was to hire more people. They've referenced all these various books about it, but they're basically saying, okay, times have changed. All these different AI tools are coming out, and you can leverage like LLMs and agents and all these other technology to build automated outreach. Do different data pipelines, sales tools, etc.
Yeah.
And one quote I really like from them is some teams over automate, leaning on blunt, impersonal AI solutions that alienate prospects. Because you guys probably see this all the time. You get like an AI email or an AI message or see AI content. You're like, okay, this is rubbish. So it's kind of like a delicate art form. So what they're basically saying is that, hey, like marketing is shifting from just having people do various roles. It's just like, how can you manage all these various processes? What I would say about Clay's definition of the rise of GTM engineering is they have it very much sales and engineering focused. But I would say if you actually think in these sort of zeitgeist of, okay, like if someone says, okay, I'm a GTM engineer, or like if you read some of these job descriptions, I think it's kind of bigger than that. I think like it is revenue ops, it is marketing automation, it is sales automation, it is a lot of data stuff. But I'd be curious, like Terry, like what have you seen from these definitions?
Yeah. So the way that I was thinking about it as you were kind of talking about the Clay setup is imagine if you had a lemonade stand and you can sit there and you can sell your lemonade. But let's say your lemonade stand becomes bigger and now you want to have two lemonade stands. In the past, you would have needed to hire another team to run that lemonade stand. Maybe not a 1-to-1 ratio, but as your lemonade business grew, you'd need more and more people to run these different stands. What Clay is kind of figuring out is, well, what if we just have a computer that helps us run these lemonade stands? In that way, our scaling will be nonlinear and we can keep our costs low while we still scale really aggressively. And I think it's a really interesting way of thinking about business units and economics in general, because like you said, for a very long time, the idea was more people equals more money, right? You have a business that's hot. The first thing you need to do is go hire a bunch of people to sell it for you. And Clay is kind of flipping that idea on its head and saying, well, what if the first thing you do is actually figure out how to automate the pipeline so that then you can bring the humans in to use their human judgment on top of that pipeline? And I think that that's a really interesting and intriguing prospect.
I think it's kind of interesting because they kind of define the type of people. And this is a great blog by the way. I'll put it in the description. But they're saying like, okay, they're looking for like somewhat technical people, like actual engineers who are great with people, have very high agency, and then they have a few other things like they've sort of built these sort of systems before and like really understand the process from start to finish.
No, I love it. I think it reminds me a lot of data science and as well with developer relations, where both these job roles that have pretty wide areas, right? A data scientist was anyone from a PhD who just studied 10 years of ML to someone who was plugging numbers into a Python script and everything in between, right? You had people who were working on visualization, overfit. It was one of those broad categories where, and then as well, the second element, which is in common with data science as well as developer relations, is you have to present your work. You don't get to just push to GitHub. You have to get out in front of other human beings and now increasingly LLMs and convince them to use your product.
I think this post, I'm just going to share one more thing actually before I hand it over. I think to me, this kind of broke it down quite well. So you have like all the operations, like pipeline, CRM, sales, prospecting, growth, like marketing, etc.
And who is this post from?
Matteo Follis.
And the point he's making here is basically that GTM engineering sits in a nice three circles: ops, growth, sales. I think this is a really nice way of putting it in terms of a nice system. And to go back to the Clay thing, the reason why hiring a GTM engineer is so hard is because if you look at the slices that were in that circle, people usually don't have more than one. If you're good at the one, then you won't be good at the other. So how do you get someone who has elements of all of those things?
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for taking us through that tour of GTM engineering's history with Clay and what a GTM engineer is, because I think there's a lot of confusion around what it is. And I want to talk a little bit about the current trends in GTM engineering and also how to break in. Because if you're watching or listening to this, you're probably interested in either getting into it or hiring someone. So let's get into it. GTM engineering is what happens when revenue gets too technical for process alone. So this was mentioned in the first State of GTM Engineering benchmark. 450 companies participated. Definitely recommend checking it out. Some real big companies that are making plays in GTM engineering. So we looked at that Venn diagram to kind of see what it means exactly to me at GTM engineering. And I want to dial in a little more on it. The job is often going to be doing data and CRM, product signals, and engagement. And then you're taking those things, turning them into workflows with AI agents, and executing them. You're going to be writing SQL, connecting APIs, automating workflows, and at the end of the day, reducing manual work. So whether you're doing that with Claude Code, you're doing that with ChatGPT, you're doing that with hitting an API directly, your end goal is really to be able to reliably and efficiently reduce that manual work. And we have a great quote there from Cam Thompson, who's the director of paid acquisition at Apollo. The role sits at the intersection of technical implementation, data orchestration, and revenue strategy. So the superpower that a GTM engineer can offer your organization, in my humble opinion, and this is now being confirmed by Drew Brevdick, who is from Vercel, who says the best GTM engineers don't just see patterns. They turn them into systems that run without them. Obviously, the first step to being an effective GTM engineer is people are looking for someone who can recognize patterns. Then, once you can recognize patterns, so let's say, for example, someone visiting your web page more than one time in a certain time period. Well, you might auto-enrich that with Clearbit and route it to an account executive in Slack. So those are the kind of workflows that you might be working on. Or another one might be one of your champions changes jobs. Well, you should probably reach out to that champion and see what's going on with the new job. So there's things like this that you can do so that instead of manually having to have someone troll LinkedIn or even pulling from LinkedIn just to do diffs on people's jobs, you can have an automated process that takes care of these things for you. And one thing I really want to highlight here is that the shift isn't just more tools, because we love tools, but we're finding more and more that the real shift is in the orchestration layer. So what we have on the left is the fragmented stack of yesteryear, where you have your CRM and Salesforce, you've got your sequences and outreach, you've got your enrichment and Zoom info, alerts and Slack, you've got reporting and sheets, you've got nurture and Marketo. We're looking at now, if you were to use something like Clay is going to enrich your ICP match. You're going to get some AI scores and route leads. Smart leads send personalized sequences. Slack notifies the account executive on the reply, and the CRM is updated automatically. So we have some quotes there from some of the leaders in GTM tools that are reinforcing this process. People are moving more and more towards these workflows that don't require human intervention. And the benefit of them is not only that they run all the time, but they're a lot easier to debug, right? You don't want to be doing your outreach, your sales, your revenue generation based on vibes. You want to be using data-driven workflows that you can run experiments on, see what works, see what doesn't, do more of what works, and pull back from what doesn't. Anything to add there, Roman?
No, definitely. I think the signals aspect is really interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of exploration. I'd like to do a full episode on that, because a lot of the sort of segmentation and the sort of ICP targeting just make it so much more powerful.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And also, I think now, almost like feature engineering and data science, people are starting to do signal engineering, right? Which is, it's easy to say, okay, this person visited your website 3 times, but you can start to get really creative with what different signals might mean and how you should proceed based on that behavior. So I think it's definitely something to talk about. So why is GTM engineering blowing up right now? I think it's really important to address that as well. If you've been on social media, then you've probably seen that everyone's talking about GTM engineering. They're trying to hire one, learn about it, etc. The first is the stack has gotten more complex. If you think about the stack that you're running at your enterprise or even for a small business, all of a sudden you've got dozens of tools you need to manage, right? You need one tool for email. You need one tool to manage your social media. Got another one for your video meetings. You've got another one for your Slack. all of a sudden you've got all these tools and you need to try to bring them together in one place. Integration debt compounds faster than headcount because if you have all these tools, well, now all of a sudden, let's say you want to change off of one tool, you have to redo your entire workflow depending on everything that was upstream and downstream of that tool. It's not a very interesting proposition. What's going to happen is people are just going to use the workflows that work instead of thinking about how to optimize them or run experiments. Second, AI has raised the automation ceiling. We know that the large language models are getting smarter and smarter. They're only going to continue. And now it's gotten to the point where their output is better than the average human in a lot of different cases. So what took a team of 3 now might just take a team of 1. Or more specifically, a team of 3 can have a lot more output and use their domain knowledge much more effectively, right? The idea is if you're a GTM engineer, you can recognize these patterns that are valuable to your enterprise. Well, that's what you should be doing while you are working. You shouldn't be answering emails or having to put reports together, these kind of things that the AI can handle for you. Your emails that do need that personal touch, you should also be notified, hey, this is an email that needs personal touch. So even having that routing in terms of what should we be using AI for and what not to use AI for, that's where the human comes in, right? Because not everyone is going to execute this at the same level. We all have access to ChatGPT and Anthropic Claude, and yet the output that humans are putting out is not the same. So we know that the way you use the tools is really going to matter. And then third, revenue teams now need technical leverage. The gap between what ops can configure and what growth requires is now a hiring signal. People don't want to sell for organizations that are stuck in the past because they know that it's going to slow them down. So the bar has been raised all around because people are realizing, just like in every other role, the bar was raised as the AI got better. It did in GTM as well. So I think this is a really good recap of why the role exists. And we have that Salesforce Agent Force, which is Salesforce's GTM Engineering AI offering, where you can have revenue processes exposed through an API-first architecture. And we're seeing everyone is moving towards this. If it's not agent compatible, it's not CLI compatible, it's not skills compatible, MCP compatible, you're going to get left in the dust.
Definitely. I think one thing to add on that as well is I think a massive part of this is, I don't know, there's just so much out there. It's so hard to know what actually works. I think in like any organization, you get send like 20 X posts a day. So like a big part of it is like, hey, you actually got to learn to filter stuff out fast. Just choose the right winning bets, basically.
I think that's a big reason why we decided to start this podcast, Roman, is we are sending each other links back and forth all day. And then we realize, well, wait a second. We actually are able to be a filter for other people, right? So find your filter and just drink through that filter, right? That's one thing I like to tell people. And don't try to follow all the AI news because you're going to go crazy. Just find the people that you trust and that you can follow their opinion. For me, that's people like Dax. I like Prime Agent. I like Armin Rocher from Flask. Those are just 3 people that are at the top of my head. But you can just follow these people who you consider knowledgeable and just follow their stack. You don't have to stay up to date on everything. And the same goes for your GTM engineering stack, right? You don't have to start from scratch. Just go look at what Clay's doing. Go look at what Vercel's doing. Go look at what Salesforce is doing and start there. And then, of course, customize it to your use case.
Definitely.
So just to dive a little deeper into what exactly GTM engineering is, because often people conflate it with revenue operations. And I would argue that there's a gap between RevOps and GTM engineering. You have that quote from Apollo where they say RevOps optimizes existing workflows. GTM engineering builds entirely new systems of leverage. And that leverage word is really, really crucial here because what you can do with the GTM engineer, going back to the lemonade stand, is now that one person can run more lemonade stands, right? The RevOps is going to be the hygiene, admin, reporting, reliability. So how good are your lemons? How clean are your lemons? How clean are your cups? Are you getting enough cups ordered? Things like that. The GTM engineering side is, who should we reach out to sell some lemonade to? How do we integrate this AI? How do we get more information about the people that we're reaching out to? How do we route the information or the requests that are coming in about our lemonade stand? So if you're ever thinking about, hey, what's the difference between GTM engineering and RevOps? It's leverage, right? The idea is that GTM engineering is here to create leverage of the things that RevOps can provide. And just to wrap it up, the role sits at the intersection of GTM context, shipping ability, and systems thinking. So you're going to need to have a bit of all three, kind of like Roman mentioned, what Clay was looking for. In a lot of ways, it's a unicorn, but that's what you need to have if you want to get into the GTM engineering game. And just to really, really drive it in, this isn't just a hypothetical. So I went online and I found all these GTM engineer jobs that are currently hiring from these companies that are quite large. So it's not just a fad. It's not a passing of the moment. This is a real career. And this is the best time to get in my humble opinion, because it's new. So even the best GTM engineers won't have that much of a lead on you. If you put your head down and really grind in a year, you should be in a pretty good spot. So I'd highly recommend GTM engineering in terms of people who are able to think about patterns and problem solve, almost like you like playing chess at low time speeds. Those kind of people are really going to excel in this role. And then in terms of comp, not too shabby. You see that wide range, so you're probably like, wait a second, that's more than $100,000 range. That's kind of odd. But just like a sales job, the compensation is wide because sometimes it can be tied to results. And secondly, because the category is early. So I'm going to wrap back around to that. But because the category is early, one of the other benefits of being in GTM engineering is you get to kind of define your role in category in a way that other people with more traditional and stable job titles simply cannot. So in terms of what premiums people are looking for, you have AI workflows, CRM automation, and data orchestration. So those are the three things that can really help you stand out in this role. And one really important thing to note, once again, Drew coming in for us to say, the hiring bar is proof, not pedigree. So like a lot of other careers in software, people will not care that you went to Harvard or that you won the Olympics, etc. The resume isn't what's going to matter. What's going to matter is what have you done in production and what results did it get? Did you ship it? Is it running? Was it successful? And in terms of specifically what roles people can think about GTM engineering being associated with that they might be more familiar with, you've got solution engineer, founder, product engineer, RevOps, and the reasoning should be pretty self-explanatory, but you've got a little something there in case it's unclear. And there's one route that I would really recommend that you go if you are starting is just simply raise the ceiling on quality, right? So there's two different ways you can think about GTM: removing friction from existing processes, making the machine faster, optimization versus innovation, right? And it's the one on the right that's really going to move the ocean for you. Efficiency agent, that's great. We love being more efficient, but that's something that's going to be a little more accessible to a little more people. Whereas an excellence agent is something that can really, really differentiate you. So I would take Drew's advice, start with efficiency, right? Easier to prove, but then graduate to excellence. So you want to end up at that excellence agent as opposed to, hey, I just made this thing that made our system more efficient. You want to be able to say, I made this thing that made us more money. And then in terms of your skills, just to reiterate one more time, business judgment, pattern matching, the way you think is number one. So that if you don't have that, you're going to be kind of doomed. Read a book, check out some ChatGPT courses. Second, AI workflow design. So how do you think about the AI workflow as a whole, the architecture, how many LLM calls versus when you don't need an LLM, things like that. APIs automation, data modeling, and marketing systems. And in terms of what projects you should be working on, if you're out there wondering how to get your hands dirty, simple 3-step process, right? Identify a broken process, build an automation, and then measure the impact. If the impact is good, try to make it better. If the impact doesn't change, then try something else. If the impact makes it worse, throw it away. And the simplest path to getting that project done is just find a manual process at your enterprise or your small business or in your personal life, automate it, measure the outcome, document the result. So that's the conclusion of the inaugural GTM engineering report, Revenue Engineered. And the big takeaway that I want people to have from this is really, A, the shift isn't more tools, it's more orchestration. B, there is a gap between RevOps and GTM engineering, and that gap is leverage. And C, if you're looking to break in, actually do something in production that makes people money. And before we leave, I do want to say one more thing, which is why I think GTM engineering is so exciting right now. The people writing the playbook are the same people writing the code. And since this is so new and so early, we really get to have a real impact in molding what GTM engineering looks like. So I'm really excited about this, Roman. I know you are too, and excited to keep sharing the latest on GTM engineering with the people.
Definitely. Same here. Thanks.
Nice. So thanks for joining us for the first episode of Scale Intelligence, your weekly dose of GTM engineering news. We're going to be back next week with something a little more technical. Wanted to just lay the stage for week 1, and week 2, we're going to kind of dive into some under the hood stuff. So looking forward to seeing everyone there. My name is Terry Damiba, and this is
Roman. I will see you soon.
All right. Take it easy.